meeting. At the beginning, let me start with short introduction. I will start with introduction of myself. So I'm Michał Pierzgalski, and I'm an expert in Krajowa Izba Rozliczeniowa, KIR. And I'm also a part of a team which stands behind this new venture called Sandbox Blockchain. What is the purpose of today's meeting? For me, it's to supply you with some core information about new service. This is new service not only on the Polish but also on European market. And this service is called Sandbox Blockchain. I do believe that after this meeting, some of you start cooperation with our project. The main benefits of this meeting should be your ability to answer the short and simple question: how and why this sandbox can fit into my business plan. If we achieve this goal, that will be great. Let's review the agenda. Okay. Okay, now is the first part, as we can see. This is the short introduction to the Sandbox blockchain. This is me. And then I hand over presentation to Łukasz Wiśniewski from PKO Bank Polski, who will deliver you the short concept of onboarding to the platform. And this is the first part. This is business-oriented part. And then we move to the second part. It will be delivered by our guys from IBM. This is, as you can see, very technologically oriented part. And regarding Q&A, I suggest to split them into two parts, one after business introduction, and another one at the end of the meeting after technology part. We are getting our questions using the chat. Okay. So moving into introduction to the platform. Next slide. Where is it? Okay. I'd like to present the short story about what has happened, that today we are able to deliver you the short story about our new project. Not only story, but in fact, we deliver the quite good service, which is working from November of the last year. So KIR is very involved in many new technological projects. And for the last 2-3 years, we have been involved also in some blockchain-based services. And during our cooperation with partners, with PKO Bank Polski, with IBM, with Chmura Krajowa, we discovered that something like Sandbox would be very beneficial for potential customers in order to be prepared to deliver the final business solution. And that was the start of the concept, and then the rest is the history. And right now we are able to talking about the effective and running project, which is Sandbox Blockchain. what is the main purpose of this project? The main purpose of this project is to deliver the new platform from prototyping, testing, and finally delivering blockchain-based services to the market. In order to achieve this aim, we involve a number of subjects. All members of this project present vast experience in its area of activity, which is really important. This extensive experience reassuring us that this project will present top quality and be able to address all possible needs of you. Okay. So right now I will present you the role of the parts of this project. So, KIR, Krajowa Izba Rozliczeniowa, the National Clearing House, together with its foundation, Fundacja Cymberium, has governance role and leading role in this project. Then PKO Bank Polski, PKO BP, Bank Polski, is responsible for onboarding of new entities to the platform. The very important technological role is played by IBM, which is responsible for blockchain technology. It's a Hyperledger Fabric. And also Chmura Krajowa, national cloud operator, is responsible for technological platform. We cooperate also with FinTech Poland, which supports us with legal support, and very important support is coming from KNF, is national financial regulator, and KNF has its own innovation program addressing new technologies called Innovation Hub by KNF. And this program will be supporting this platform with regulatory support. It will be addressing possible questions, possible problems from our customers regarding regulatory aspects of all blockchain projects. Regarding technology, as I said before, this platform is on a Hyperledger Fabric. We do believe this is quite a common platform from private blockchain in Europe on the market. We are using cloud with Chmura Krajowa, all using programs it's open source. And we do believe that all these aspects will be something very beneficial, because at the end, we hope that we believe some benefits for our customers, like first of all, shortened time to market, and then quickly launch a private isolated instance of a business network. It will give you an ability to rapidly prototype all your new services. And at the end, it's coming to the fastest commercialization of products and services. And to be honest, it's everything what is necessary to know about Sandbox blockchains, to know that it's all about delivering the new services based on blockchain to the Polish. But as this platform is addressed not only for Polish entities, but also for all abroad entities, to deliver blockchain-based services to the market. Before I hand over my presentation to PKO-BP, I would like to add some words about Kir as a leader of Sandbox project. Why the leader? Why Kir? First of all, we are not only the National Clearing House. We are responsible for all transfers in Poland, not only with System Elixir, but also instant payments with System Express Elixir. But we are very, very involved in new solutions. We delivered also trust services. We delivered PSD2 services like Hub PSD2. And creating new solutions using new technologies, including blockchains. It's maybe trivial, but it's true. It's a part of our business DNA. So we do believe that Kir is the right company in the right place to be a leader of this project. Right now, it's time to hand over my presentation to PKO-BP. As you can see on this slide, Sandbox Blockchain is already open for your action. You can say where is to apply. You can apply on the page www.sandboxblockchain.pl. So please be welcome, and Łukasz, it's your time.
Yes, thank you, Michał. I will just read the presentation. So, hello everyone. Once again, my name is Łukasz Wiśniewski. I work in blockchain team in PKO Bank Polski, but today I also represent the Let's Fintech with PKO Bank Polski initiative. And during my part of presentation, I will suggest you how you can gain some benefits from the Sandbox Blockchain program, and in general, I'm going to get down into details of the assessment path, the application process, and so on. So without further ado, let's start. At the beginning, I would like to talk a bit about the Let's Fintech program path, because it's very good example of what you can achieve by participating in a blockchain Sandbox Blockchain program. And we as a PKO Bank Polski for about 4 or 5 years strongly cooperate with startups, or maybe I should say external partners, because sometimes those partners are just software houses or companies with the IT staff. And the Let's Fintech program is the point of the first contact for such external entities which may provide something innovative. You can place a submission on our website to the Let's Fintech program. After that, we conduct an internal assessment of the set of data which you provided, and we assess it with the team consists of both business and IT experts. And then we meet with you to even better understand what you do and what you may offer to us. And that meeting is also about looking for the business owner in the organization to get the business match. if we can define the potential field of the cooperation, we can also define the sample of your product or your service, and build the framework of the pilot. And the pilot is all about meeting the expectation of this business owner. It could be partial implementation of your solution or test on some small group of clients. And during the pilot, what is worth to mention, you receive some funds from the PKO, but it's not a big sum. It's rather for refunding your costs and time involved in the pilot. And after the successful pilot, you may start the full commercial cooperation with the PKO, the partnership. And there are many examples of startups who already finished this Let's Fintech path. And this is our program. Let's say we ran it for like 2 years. And what is the difference between the Let's Fintech program and the Sandbox Blockchain program? The main difference is that during the pilot phase, you may receive the free instance of the Hyperledger Fabric technology based on Chmura Krajowa. As Michał mentioned, it is our national cloud service provider. It's for free for up to 6 months for you to develop your product or process based on blockchain technology. So it reduces the barrier of let's say, the cost of developing the POC. And the second thing, which is also, which I also need to mention, is that you do not need to cooperate with PKO Bank Polski to get access to the Sandbox blockchain. We are the first accelerator in this initiative. So we gather all the submissions and the application forms and do the first stage of the assessment. But during the assessment, you will also meet the KIR and colleagues maybe from the IBM or Chmura Krajowa. And then you may decide that you want to go solo or with your own business partner, and also you will receive the access to the Sandbox blockchain. And let's start with the details of it. You may start your application process at the website sandboxblockchain.pl or at fintech.pkovp.pl. And after a few clicks, you will find an application form. You need to provide their information about your company in general, some contact information, the pitch deck. You should answer the question, what you do, what is your competitive advantage, what is your idea for cooperation with bank or for the use of the Sandbox blockchain. And there are 3 very important checkboxes. First of all, you should tick the Sandbox blockchain checkbox if you are willing to participate in this program. Second thing is the business cooperation. By ticking that, you will let us know that you want to be perceived as a startup, as an entity who wants to cooperate with us. And the last but not least is equity investment. We have our own corporate venture capital fund, and from time to time they invest in our startups, and even more often not in our startups because they are very active. So we may also provide information about you to them. So worth to take that one also. And as I said, after that we start the internal assessment. It takes about 2 weeks to do that. And after the internal assessment, we meet with you, and then you will get the decision if you can go for the Sandbox or not. If you have chosen the solo way, you will just get the access and you will start doing something on the Sandbox, maybe building your POC. And if you would like to cooperate with PKO Bank Polski, then you should sit with us and define the framework of the pilot and build the expectations with the business owner. And here are some tips what we are looking for in this field of blockchain. We are most active in a investment market field and payment services. By that, I mean that we develop our security and payment tokens, and we do have our internal initiatives, but also initiatives and projects conducted with external partners, also with startups, but there is Warsaw Institute of Technology and some business partners, and this area is, I think, not fulfilled completely. So you may offer us something in this field, and we can talk to cooperate. There is one identified but not covered need in our capital group, in PKO group, in the corporate banking field. The need is about new transferred agent system, and we found out that we as PKO need to develop new type of transfer agent system, and the foundation of it might be made by the blockchain technology. It makes sense in some way. So if you have experience in this field, feel more than welcome to contact us. The next area is value-added services for banking activity. It's rather open category to don't think only in a bank way about the cooperation with bank. You can also offer us non-typical banking services or products. For instance, I can give you the example of our marketplace of lawyers, which we built with the startups, and our clients may state their some issues and receive some let's say help from various lawyers and the valuations at the beginning. So like it works like a marketplace. And last but not least, there is a field of trust services. It is rather now the proof that we can do it with startup. Our whole adventure with the blockchain technology started with the Confirm startup, but also we developed this first product with along with Kir and IBM to precise. Right now, this project also takes some other partners. So in the credibility of documents, we are rather satisfied with blockchain solutions, but always you can think about something new, maybe in this remote customer identification field when we talk about the trust services. So feel welcome to also contact us with such ideas. This is the sum up of the whole path, and that's all from me in this part. So thank you for the attention. The next part will be conducted by IBM team, and they will talk about technical aspects of Hyperledger Fabric and our Sandbox Blockchain initiatives. I once heard that part is really interesting, even for maybe less technical experts. So I encourage you to listen to this. But before that, me and Michał will take some questions to this first half of the webinar. So if you have any, feel free to ask right now. You may raise your hand in a Microsoft Teams application, or just type the question in the chat. Unfortunately, I do not see the chat right now. So if you, Michał, see an activity there.
There is no questions right now.
Okay.
So maybe at the end, will some question. Okay, it's quite simple question. Would it be possible to receive the presentation?
Sure. From my point of view, we can provide the PKO's presentation. we also plan to deliver this recording to YouTube channel of Krajowa Izba Rozliczeniowa or our other partners, so you will find the whole speech.
Okay, Łukasz, I think we should move forward.
Sure.
Thank you, Łukasz. Thank you, Michał. So now we'll switch to our part. So just give me a second, I will share my screen. Okay, you should see my presentation now. Could you please tell me if it is working?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you. So, hello, welcome. My name is Patryk Walaszczyk. I'm working at IBM, where I'm responsible for delivering projects based on blockchain technology. I'm responsible for a business analysis part and some project management activities. And together with Maciej Jędrzejczyk and Adam Skowroński, today we would like to make a short introduction to the Sandbox Blockchain from a technical perspective. So our presentation is divided into three major parts, during which we would like to describe you the main environment characteristics, go to the architecture in details, and in the end of the presentation we have prepared a live demo where we will present you how you can make use of a blockchain sandbox from the practical perspective, let's say. Okay, so during my part, I will try to cover the aspects of the main environment characteristics and the use cases which are available for the users of a blockchain sandbox. So, what is the blockchain sandbox? This is a solution based on the Hyperledger Fabric 1.4, and it is available as a platform as a service model. Why we choose the Hyperledger Fabric 1.4? Because when we were starting our project, the 1.4 was the only version which has long-term support. We are aware of the fact that currently there are a newer version with long-term support. However, only the 1.4 will be available in the blockchain sandbox currently, but we have a plans to switch to the version 2.x in a near future. However, currently, as I said, only 1.4 will be available. So, blockchain sandbox is a platform as a service model, and it uses the functionalities of Hyperledger Fabric protocol to simulate a business network in a configuration that allows the transition to the process of building decentralized applications and testing it in a real environment, or let's say the environment which is as similar to a real business network as possible. So the main functionalities which I think is worth to mention are the fact that the Sandbox blockchain is using the Raft as the ordering service network consensus protocol. We have also prepared some API interfaces which are giving you a chance to verify the basic information about the state of the registry components. We are also providing the new programming models for the Hyperledger Fabric SDK in the Node.js and Java. And there are also the private data collection available, which gives you a chance to test all the various scenarios which requires the sensitive or personal data which will be not stored on-chain and shared among all the participants of your network. So from the use cases perspective, we have divided our possible use cases for two major roles. So there are application or smart contract developers and the administrators of the blockchain network who would like to use the blockchain network to build applications and integrate existing IT infrastructure or IT processes with the sandbox. And as I said, there are some sample use cases which they may use to integrate their infrastructure or their applications with the Sandbox blockchain, and those use cases illustrate a number of available functionalities based on the whether native Hyperledger Fabric functions or the tools which are available under the blockchain Sandbox additionally. So from the application developer or the smart contract developer perspective, we have a set of 8 basic use cases, and these are, for example, as a developer, we can install and run a smart contract in a Golang, Java, and Node.js. We can also connect our application that uses the Hyperledger Fabric SDK in Java or Node.js. Also, as a developers, we can integrate our external systems with the APIs provided by CouchDB, Fabric CA, Peer, Orderer, and API server components. Developers can also test the smart contract performance in various scenarios, which will be covered by your application or use cases. Developers can also make use of the communication channels to test the data distribution privacy scenarios, as well as test it with the private data collection, as I said before, to run a smart contract that processes the personal data or sensitive business data that is not saved directly on chain. Developers can also make use of the query indexing functionality to speed up some complex queries of the registry status and the history using the native functionalities of the CouchDB. And developers can also connect some external load benchmarking tools like, for example, Hyperledger Caliper. And those are the main use cases which we have identified for application or smart contract developer role. On the other hand, we've got the operator or the administrator of a blockchain network, and we have also identified 8 other use cases which are suitable for this specific role. So as an administrator, we can test the TLS communication between our workstation and the blockchain Sandbox components. We can also try to integrate the external monitoring systems with the blockchain network by using whether operational APIs provided by the peer order or the API server, which is dedicated for each instance of the Sandbox blockchain. Administrator can also test the scenarios for creating and revoking user identities with using the Fabric CA. They can also connect some blockchain explorer tools like, for example, Hyperledger Blockchain Explorer, or they can try to extend the network by adding the new components to an existing blockchain Sandbox instance. As well as administrator can activate the process of reinstalling the blockchain Sandbox environment from scratch. It means that there is a dedicated REST API interface which can be used by an administrator to completely delete the existing Sandbox instance and rebuild it from scratch on the next virtual machine restart. And as an administrator, we can also make use of the REST APIs to review the logs of the blockchain Sandbox network components. And these are the main functionalities or main use cases which we have identified for the role of operator and administrator. I think that's a good time to describe you what exactly we understand by saying the blockchain Sandbox instance. So, as I said in the beginning, that blockchain Sandbox is an environment which should simulate the real business network as much as possible. So we decided that the blockchain instance will consist of 3 different organizations. So each of the organization will, let's say, belong to other institution and will simulate the blockchain network consisting of these 3 organizations which have their own blockchain peers, which have the common channel in which all these organizations belong to, and they are using the Raft as a network consensus protocol, as I said in the beginning. So from the communication channels perspective, as I said, we've got one common channel to which all 3 organizations belongs. But also we have created 3 channels between various organizations. So, for example, we've got a channel 1.2, which on the organization 1 and organization 2 belongs to. Then we've got channel 1.3 and channel 2.3. And these are created for specific scenarios where, for example, you would like to try some use cases where the data will be shared only between the selected participants and will be not visible for the other organization who do not belongs to a specific channel. And also you might use it to test some other kind of use cases, like for example running the smart contract on channel 1, 2, which will call some other functions on channel on a smart contract which is deployed on the channel 1, 3. That's the main objective that we created such architecture of channels in each of the blockchain instance. From some organization component structure, I would like also to clarify what do we understand by saying the organization. So each of the organization consists of two major elements. So each of these organizations have the part which is called the order or X, and in there you've got the dedicated Fabric CA, which is specifically dedicated to components related to ordering service network. So each of the organization have its own order node, which is responsible for sorting transactions, for creating and proposing new blocks, which will be then saved to the blockchain peers. And on the other side, we've got the org-X components, which consist of a Fabric CA dedicated specifically for the Hyperledger Fabric peers components. And also each of the organization have its own two peers and a CouchDB dedicated for those peers. So in total, we've got 3 organizations with 3 order nodes in our blockchain instance and 6 peers with 2 peers for each of the organizations. In our network. From your perspective, if you will be qualified to participate in blockchain sandbox, you will receive an access to each of the instance, and you will be able to connect it with your workstation via dedicated API servers. So each of the organization has its own API server, which is communicating with the blockchain components by using the gRPCs protocol via Hyperledger Fabric SDK. And on the other side, there is a standard Swagger interface to which you can connect your workstation, and by calling the functions of API server, you can communicate indirectly with your organizations, where you can deploy your smart contract, when you can make use of smart contract functions, when you can connect your other IT infrastructure or IT systems which will be connected to your blockchain sandbox instance. And that's all from my side. Now we will switch to a more technical details where Maciej will describe you how our blockchain sandbox architecture looks like in details. But before we will switch to Maciej part, I would like to remind you that you can ask the questions on chat, you can write it down, and we will try to cover all these questions during our Q&A session in the end of the presentation. So thank you very much. And Maciej, now I'm giving the control over the presentation to you.
Thank you, Patrick. So first of all, can you please confirm if I'm being heard loud and clear?
Yes, you are.
Okay, perfect. So the objective of my part of the presentation is to give you a very high-level overview of Hyperledger Fabric architecture. It is quite important to have a basic understanding of it, so that you can identify all of the benefits arising from the use of Sandbox Blockchain. So once we have a common level of understanding on the main protocol architecture, we can move to the description of a specific implementation of Fabric on Sandbox Blockchain. And once we will go through this information, we will be able to have also a better understanding as to what sort of specific configuration has been implemented on the platform as a service offering that is available as part of the Sandbox package. So, Patrick, I suppose you control the slides, so can you please move to the next slide? Thank you. Very briefly, Hyperledger Fabric has a modular architecture composed of several components that are interchangeable and that communicate over standardized protocols. If we go, we are going to go from one component to another, starting from the client application, the one that is likely to be developed as part of the acceleration program in the Sandbox, and which is going to be developed by you, by your organization, by the candidate who is going through the incubation process. That client application is going to leverage one of the existing Hyperledger Fabric SDKs, and currently the three SDKs which are available are for Node.js, for Java, and for Go. Once this client application uses or connects to the SDK, the SDK is going to facilitate the communication between the application layer and the remainder of a distributed network. So once a transaction is composed and signed with a cryptographic signature that is generated and placed in a client wallet, still on the developer's workstation, it is going to go through the endorsement process. The endorsement process is an equivalent of notary services, whereby all of the peers, the nodes in the network, are made aware of the fact that an attempt was made by one of the organization members to submit a transaction. All of the nodes that hold the endorser will have to inspect that transaction candidate, verify the signature of a client, determine whether the transaction itself is valid from the functional perspective, and then return the information back to the client. So this is what is exactly happening during the first step of the process. This is what the red arrow with pointed with number 1, the endorse function, is actually doing. Once it reaches to the peer, so this is where we are entering into the second component of the whole system, which is called peer. A peer is a node in a network that receives, processes, executes transactions, and commits a block with a series of transactions that have been validated during a specific interval of time, and integrates them with a local copy of the ledger that is also managed by that component. As previously said, a peer can hold a role of an endorser, a notary that is responsible for the inspection, but a peer can also have a limited responsibility and stay only as a committer, and a committer is just a passive receiver of a ready block that is going to be integrated into the local copy of the ledger and made available to the application. Peer also manages the so-called chain code. Chain code in the naming convention of Hyperledger Fabric is a rough equivalent of a smart contract. And also, every single transaction or event that is generated on a peer is then exposed to the outside world, either through the gossip protocol to the other peers, or to the SDK to allow the client application to catch potential errors or other issues related to either communication or transaction processing. However, this is not the end. Once the peer returns a validated and signed transaction back to the client sends that transaction with all of the signatures collected from different peers representing organizations to another component that is called an ordering service. An ordering service is a cluster of components that are responsible for sorting all of the transactions that have been submitted by different clients during a specific interval of time, and that also acts as a sort of a time server, thus making sure that transactions are being sorted through by the order of their generation, of their creation. The ordering service also makes sure that these transactions are packed together and distributed as a new block to all of the organizations belonging to the network. And this is exactly what happens in the third stage of the process, which is called validate, when a block with transactions is sent to all of the peers. We're then verifying its integrity, the signatures, and if everything is fine, they commit the block to their local copies of the ledger. If we go further up in the diagram, we will see a component that is called membership services. We have to keep in mind that Hyperledger Fabric is a permissioned ledger, which means that there has to be a source of identity that is responsible for the management of cryptographic material representing identities of either users or components in the network. Membership services can be supplied with identities either from an external certificate authority, the one that you might already have in your organization, or by an internal component that is native to Hyperledger Fabric that is called Fabric CA, an X509 compatible certificate authority that basically does everything what a typical PKI infrastructure does, which means generating cryptographic material, managing cryptographic material, managing certificate revocation lists, etc., etc. In the context of Blockchain Sandbox, you will receive a Fabric CA component for each of the simulated organizations. So basically, you don't have to integrate or bring in your own certificate authority in order to be able to manage the identities in your network. So that's basically what a typical Hyperledger Fabric network looks like. This is also how I described the process of submitting, validating, and committing a transaction. And I also said a couple of words about the source of identity that is supplied to each of the organizations. So with this information, we can move to the actual implementation of Fabric, which is implemented in Blockchain Sandbox. As Patrick already mentioned, Blockchain Sandbox is a simulation of a real network that is composed of 3 independent organizations. And Hyperledger Fabric's architecture allows you to have a fully segmented and autonomously managed organization with its own source of identity. And within the context of that organization, the administrator of that organization is basically responsible for the assignment of identities, the management of peers, the assignment of the smart contracts for endorsement, and also the management of an underlying local copy of the ledger. Organizations will, in the context of Blockchain Sandbox, will allow you to have to simulate a different point of view of entities that normally in a real-time distributed ledger network have a very limited trust towards each other, have different perspectives as to the current state in the history of transactions, and also hold separate copies of the ledger, which are further segmented into communication channels. Hyperledger Fabric brings in the channel functionality, which divides our distributed ledger network into separate data management entities with separate sub-ledgers holding a completely separate history of transactions that have taken place exclusively in the context of that specific channel. Think of a state channel in public blockchain networks. It's a rough equivalent that has been implemented here, and it also exists in the blockchain sandbox. So, as Patrick already said, you can simulate transactions which are taking place on a confidential basis by a subset of organizations belonging to the simulated network and which are declared in a specific channel so that other simulated organizations can see the outcome of these transactions. So let's move on. Hyperledger Fabric brings in RESTful APIs that give your organization, the organization that is going through the incubation process, a possibility to remotely monitor the current state of the network. There's around 80 available metrics, which are StatsD or Prometheus formatted and optimized specifically for StatsD and Prometheus. You can plug in your monitoring system and basically check what is happening to the network under specific conditions that you are testing it against, without actually having a resort to the low-level verification of the logs generated by containers. The containers representing specific components of the network are installed on the national cloud operator's infrastructure, and you will have no access to it. You will have an access to them exclusively either through the low-level protocols such as gRPC or the RESTful APIs. But this is also playing for your benefit so that you can focus exclusively on something that brings in the biggest value for you as an organization, which is basically the development, testing, deployment, and demonstration of a business application leveraging blockchain technology. Patrick, let's move on to another slide. So if we as we already have the basic information about the inner workings of Hyperledger Fabric, we can now take a look at as to how this has been specifically designed and implemented in Sandbox Blockchain. As Patrick already said, the current implementation is based on vanilla Hyperledger Fabric version 1.4. We are planning version 2.x in the upcoming future. There's not that many differences between the two from the perspective of a developer or administrator. So we believe that it is not going to limit you in any way during the incubation process. However, if you see that there are any limits to it, please do not hesitate to contact us, and we'll analyze that request case by case. As previously said, we have 3 simulated organizations generated for each specific isolated instance of Sandbox Blockchain, and these are called org1, org2, and org3. As I said in one of the previous slides, there is a possibility to test confidential transactions between subsets of organizations just to see how privacy and confidentiality plays in a traditional business environment transposed to a distributed ledger network. And for that purpose, we designed and implemented 4 channels, one which is public to all of the simulated organizations, and 3 which are basically designed specifically for a subset of organizations that gives you a possibility to test privacy between these organizations, as any transaction taking place within the context of a channel is not going to spill the data behind it or over it to another channel. Only, for example, if org1 and org2, which are declared in channel 12, are executing transactions, only these 2 organizations are going to hold a local copy of the ledger. And organization 3 is never going to be able to read any transactions that are taking place there. So we can play around and see how, the typical non-functional requirements related to the privacy aspect of business transactions executed through the smart contract is actually working in practice. The consensus service that we implemented in Sandbox Blockchain is based on Rust, an etcd-based crash fault tolerant service that is composed of 3 nodes. We simulate a division of responsibility between those 3 nodes between the simulated organizations, which means that org1, org2, and org3 are going to formally own a copy of a wrapped cluster node. This is going to give you a better understanding as to how the ordering service network is working and what potential inspection capabilities each organization might have if they participate in the consensus process. So that being said, we can move to further details. Couple of, let's say, detailed information about this specific implementation, something that might be interesting, especially for the developers. The Sandbox Blockchain implementation is leveraging CouchDB as a state database, so that you can develop your applications with indexing capabilities, advanced querying capabilities, attribute-based querying, etc., etc. Each simulated organization is supplied with a local instance of CouchDB that is attached to a peer, so that you can not only develop your smart contracts with advanced querying capabilities, but also to inspect the outcome of your transactions from native CouchDB interfaces, available either through APIs or from the Foxton user interface. Otherwise, as you can already, as you have probably found, there are 2 very important environmental variables that define that all of the communication taking place between the components is secured with TLS, so that your specific instance of Sandbox Blockchain environment is made exclusively for you. Whatever you're doing on your workstations once you connect to the network is only going to be known to you, because you will be the only entity that will own the cryptographic keys, allowing you to connect to the environment. Even we can't have an access to it. So in case you, for example, you lose your keys, we will be forced to reboot the environment and recreate it so that the keys can be generated all over again and made available to you. So this is just to give you an example. TLS communication is enabled, and just one more detail. The TLS client authentication is not enabled, just to make sure that you can test all of the sorts of secured communication between your workstation and the distributed ledger network, and to make sure that you avoid any communication issues between the two. We can move to another slide. So from from the actual logical architecture perspective, we see how different components, which I described in the first slide, are being placed in the specific context of an implementation made on Sandbox Blockchain. We start with your own workstation, which is in the upper part of the diagram, from which you integrate with the network and from which you communicate with the use of gRPC protocol. There are two ways allowing you to communicate with the network. There's a direct communication between your application, the peer, and the order. And there is also an indirect communication through the RESTful API server that we specifically designed for the purpose of this implementation, and which gives you a possibility to rapidly verify the current state of the network, execute a transaction with a sample smart contract, and obtain your cryptographic keys during the first deployment. The RESTful API server has an access to your wallet, so that the transaction can basically take place with the use of the server itself. The keys are generated by the certificate authority, CMP 10. If you go further down to the center of the diagram, we see the peer and the order, the two components that you're now familiar with, and CMP number 2, 11, and 4, which is smart contract, CouchDB indexes, and private data collection definitions, are going to be supplied by you. You will be developing these, and these will be installed and instantiated on your private copy, on your private instance of Sandbox Blockchain. But from the capabilities perspective, these functionalities are made available to you, and you can leverage them without any limitations. Last but not least, there is obviously a local copy of the ledger, CMP05, that is attached to the peer. You don't have a direct access to it, but you can access it through the gRPC protocol. There is an access to the world state, which is, as I previously said, based on CouchDB, and you can access it either directly with the use of Foxen user interface, or indirectly by leveraging gRPC functions which are natively made available via an SDK by Hyperledger Fabric protocol. Also, we have trenching store and channel configuration, which are pre-configured for you, so that you don't have to take any care of these two. They are being served as as a service basis. So I believe that this is everything from my side. If you have any further questions about either Hyperledger Fabric architecture or a specific implementation that has been made in this initiative and that which is going to be made available to you, please do not hesitate to post your questions in the chat window, and I'll try to answer them as soon as possible. Now, I suppose that Adam is going to take over the discussion and show a live demo of the environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maciek. Now I'm Adam Skowroński. In IBM, I'm responsible for architecture, design, and implementation of blockchain solution. And currently, I'm going to show you how to connect to Sandbox Blockchain. What can you do with very limited or basic tools, and in fact how it works. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to show you from command line interface how to execute this operation. Okay. let me know if you can see my screen. Patrick, okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. So, as Maciek said, if you start working with our Sandbox blockchain, the first thing you get is some names and some ports you can access a network, and the first action you have to take is to get cryptographic material. This is very important thing, because in fact cryptographic material is the key to your network. If you have it, you own the network. If you lose it, you lose the network. If anyone steals these keys, he steals your network. So to obtain these keys, you need to call command as on your screen, and after we get the file which we can extract, keys from this file. And in this file, you received two directories. The first one search. In search directory, there are some keys which allows you to connect to our RESTful API server, and in cryptoconfig directory, there are all key certificates or public private keys which allows you to connect, to modify, to do everything with your network. So now we have keys, and the first thing we can do after, we can just try to execute some to do some actions on our blockchain, because now we have connection. First, we can use our RESTful API server to do some basic changes on the blockchain. This is an example of command. What can we see? We just connect to our RESTful API server. We are going to add some asset of type car. We do this in channel common, one of the channels we created for you, and we provide needed search from search directory, as I said previously, and we just create an asset with the value Lexus. So I've executed this command already. I've got an answer. I've got the ID of this asset. I'm going to save this ID as environmental variable. And so what can we do next? We can check if this asset was created. So I'm going to execute another command, which I ask asset car, and I provide ID on the same channel, and I've got an answer. There is one asset of type car, and value is Lexus, as I previously added. I can, of course, add another asset, and for example, display the list of assets I have created today. So as you can see, we have two assets. One Lamborghini, the second one is Lexus. This RESTful API provides us with function of deletion and update of asset. I'm not going to show this, but these are very basic operations: create, update, delete, and list, and this actions proves us that our network is working, and we have access. So that you downloaded proper certificates, and you can use these certificates to access the database. Okay, database. As Maciej said, in Hyperledger Fabric, there are two databases. One is the Ledger database. We don't have direct access to this ledger. We can access it through the direct connection to peers. But another database. This is World State database, which stores the current snapshot of the current state of the data. And it's available through graphical user interface. I can log to this database. I'll show you how it looks like. So what can we see? Currently we can see that there are few databases. The databases for common channel, to 012 channel, 013 channel. There's no database for 023 channel because we are connecting to peer which belongs to first organization number 1. So we don't have access to 023 channel. And for each channel, there are some databases connected to smart contract. Our smart contract is called CC. So we can go into and we can see that there are two assets we've created before. These are these cars, Lexus, Lamborghini. We can see that here is the type of this asset and ID. So this is an access to the database. Okay, but I suppose that joining Sandbox Network, you are not going to execute this simple chain code and check if this asset is created, but you are going to create your own chain code and test it and change it and check how it works. So I will give you an example how to load your own chain code into this Sandbox blockchain network. So first we need this chain code. I'm going to use chain code from Hyperledger samples. I'm going to download it from Git. And okay. And to install it, we need to have access to CLI interface of Hyperledger Fabric. We can have access by downloading a Docker container, Docker image of Fabric tools. I've already did it before, so I have this image installed on my computer. And all I need to do to run this image is to execute these commands. Very important is to set host file to provide the proper names of Sandbox Blockchain components, and I mount some my Fabric samples chain code, the directory where chain code I'm going to install is placed, and just execute this run this container with such parameters. Okay, we have a prompt. So this is a very basic container. It has no information about network, so we need to provide some information about this network. It can be done by script. Now I can just execute some creation of environmental variables which will be used by this container to connect to our network. As you can see, there are some information where certificates or where cryptographic materials is placed, and other parameters. After setting these variables, we can execute simple command pure channel list. Okay, and because I set myself or this container as a member of organization 1, so we can see that organization 1 has access to these 3 channel as we expected. It's common 013 and 012. And what next? We can check the list of chain code installed on this organization. We can see that there is a one chain code named CC installed on this network. The next command show us which chain code is instantiated. There's a difference between installation and instantiation of chain code. Installed are just installed and ready to be run, but instantiated is a chain code which is fully prepared and will be executed in the next execution. So, because we downloaded this Fabric samples chain code, we are going to install this in the same way you will able to install your chain code. So we have a success. We can check if this chain code is installed. It is. And we can check that it's not instantiated yet. So to instantiate, we execute another command. We execute a command instantiate, provide some information about connection, about certificates. We name this chain code as asset transfer. Use the chain code asset transfer. We install it on channel common and execute some initial function, and we specify the policy of how many or which organization and which peers have to have to prove that the transactions will be executed and put on the ledger. So in this case, we define that to do some changes on the ledger, we need only confirmation of one member of organization one. So instantiation takes some time. Okay. We can check if this chain code was instantiated. It is. So what we can do, we can just check what are the data in this chain code. We can see that the participant A has 100 of something and the participant B has 200 of something. These are the data stored in this blockchain. We can see that I've executed command query. This command requires only peer to be running, and this is read-only command. We just check the state of the world state database, in fact, from channel common and from chain code asset transfer. Okay, now we are going to change this something from the CLI level. We did it from the REST API level before for another chain code. So currently I'm going to invoke, so make some changes on the blockchain. Invoke method invoke, and I'm going to transfer 10 from A to B. Okay, it was executed. I can check B has now 210 and A has now 90 of something. So in very similar way, we can execute the test chain code we've installed. The only difference is that the policy of endorsement is different on our chain code, and it requires to be confirmed by all organized.
I believe we have some technical problems because Adam got disconnected.
Yes, we lost Adam.
Let's just wait 1 second and see if he's going to reconnect. In the meantime, we can check the questions. If there are any questions. I see that there's a lot of requests for the contact. Otherwise, we definitely encourage all of you to visit our website, sandboxblockchain.pl. I'm just gonna paste it into the chat window. You will have plenty of information about the initiative made available there. So if you still have any further questions about what the initiative is about, what benefits you can possibly get, technical questions and others, please do not hesitate to contact us, either today through the chat window or in the upcoming future through an official application form, which is available on the website.
Jakub, can you check a lobby? Adam is waiting probably.
Okay, I'm in. I'm very sorry for my technical problems. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes,
Yes, you can.
Okay. So can I continue? Okay, I'm going to show how to execute the chain code of CC chain code. There is a difference between executing changes on asset transfer chain code and CC chain code because of endorsement policy. Because in CC chain code, endorsement policy is said that all organizations has to confirm change before it will be submitted to the ledger. So I need to provide addresses from 3 peer organizations, and I can execute this as you can see. So there's in the same way I can update and I can execute command to list. As you can see, I've added car asset and I can see it. And of course I can check this car previously inserted into the blockchain using a RESTful API server. How is our databases? Our databases looks there. We have new database common asset transfer. It's only available on common channel, as you can see, because we installed asset transfer chain code on common channel. And I need to log in again. Okay. And we have one CRR and 2 cars in our database. So everything looks good. And we can check also some logs from orderers and from peers using metric access to see what is happening on the deeply in the infrastructure, to see some metrics from orderer. We can execute such command just to connect to this orderer. And we have a lot of metrics. I'm not going to describe everyone, but we can easily filter it and see that that orderer recorded that there are 36 blocks created in a channel common, and on the rest there are 21. It's because after the start of the network, some test invokes are executed. So the first 21 blocks are used by network to prove that everything is going, that everything is running. So in a very similar way, we can check metrics of peer, and we can see here that this peer has access to 3 channels common, 01, 2, and 113. The depth of the blockchain is the same as our orderer, and we have some additional information that we execute one transaction on asset transfer, smart code, and 29 transaction on CC, chain code, and on channel command. So I hope this live presentation showed you that the connection to our blockchain sandbox is easy and can be executed from the using very basic tools. And so it's not a very complicated thing. Of course, all these commands can be implemented in some application, your application, which will be created to connect to the blockchain sandbox. So that's all from my side. Thank you for attention. And let's move to question, I suppose.